Chapter 1. The Substitute. Good Lord! Miss Guile has jumped overboard! A cry of alarm, followed by a loud splash, pierced the night sky. The Imperial cruise ship sped forward, creating great rolling waves in the sea. In an instant, the petite figure of a girl was completely submerged. In the pitch-black depths of the sea, countless ravaging waves surged and stormed, crushing the viscera. Breathing became increasingly difficult. The despair of impending death awoke in Yal Brooks in an instant, but her body continued plummeting rapidly. She couldn't open her eyes as the bone-chilling seawater overwhelmed her senses, pouring into her nose and flooding her lungs. The infinite darkness made it impossible to distinguish between illusion and reality. Where was she? In the sea. Yal, the daughter of the Brooks family, a top financial corporation in the state of Hunan, caused a major scandal years ago and was sent away to a private psychiatric institution in a remote city. For the past 10 years, Yal had endured inhumane torment every day, suffering a fate worse than death. Yet, not a single member of the Brooks inquired nor checked on her. Until half a month ago, the Brooks suddenly experienced a fit of kindness and arranged for her return to Hunaya. Sadly, it wasn't out of familial affection, but a measured move to have her replace the Brooks' adopted daughter, Willa Brooks, in marriage to Jordan York, the illegitimate scion of the wealthiest family in Hunaya. Rumor had it that Jordan was as capricious and ruthless as Hades, the Lord of Hell, and widely feared by all in Hunaya. It was prophesied that he wouldn't live past the age of 26, so the York family's old patriarch sought to ward off misfortune with matrimony, relying on the superstitious belief that weddings bring good luck. Only Jordan rejected everyone but Willa, the adopted daughter of the Brooks. It was common knowledge that Willa, known as the top socialite of Hunaya, was a prodigy beloved by all. She and Joshua York, the legitimate heir of the York family, were deeply in love, envied and adored by many as the golden couple. Jordan, however, insisted on coveting his brother's girl. Naturally, Willa refused the marriage proposal, but the Brooks family daren't provoke the living Hades. Hence, Yael, the biological daughter, came to mind. After 10 years in living hell, Yael had long been mentally deranged. Upon learning the truth, she instantly despaired and plunged herself into the sea. When Yael reopened her eyes, she was reborn a different soul, a different person transmigrated from another world. In her past life, she had braved fires and blades, faced killings and bloodshed. Now, in this ghostly water abyss, the fear of death and despair meant nothing. A strong will to survive caused her pupils to constrict, emitting a cold glint. As if her entire being had suddenly awoken, she began to traverse nimbly through the waves. Half a minute later, like a mermaid, she leapt swiftly and broke out of the surface of the sea. The silvery moonlight shrouded her under the night sky as she gasped for breaths of fresh air. She flung back her wet hair. Her sharp gaze swept toward the opulent yacht sounding its foghorn in the distance. That was the nearest place of refuge. This body had endured years of torment and illness. It was now fragile and exhausted. She had to get ashore as soon as possible. Her speed was fast. In no time she had climbed onto the yacht where bodyguards in black suits were patrolling. But her body had reached its limit. She struggled to breathe and finally could not hold out. With a thud, she collapsed heavily onto the deck, losing consciousness. A patrolling bodyguard spotted her and raised the alarm. "Sir, someone snuck onto the ship, and it's a woman." Sir was a severe germaphobe. He was sexually abstinent and despised women. In a general sense, Not even a female mosquito could be found on the yacht. Amidst a crowd not far from the deck, a young man swiveled his wheelchair. The man was draped in a luxurious black fur coat, his skin pale as if ill. His dark hair was messily drawn back, revealing a flawless forehead and chiseled features. The man's thin, charming lips tightened. Even in a wheelchair, he exuded an overpowering and intimidating presence, as if the whole universe was at his feet. He appeared aristocratic, decadent, and yet morbidly melancholic. At that moment, he lazily narrowed his eyes and commanded lightly, "Throw her overboard." His voice was cold as ice, inducing fear and dread. "Yes, sir." Before the bodyguard could act, a weak groan sounded from the dying girl on the deck floor. "Don't." Yal opened her eyes dazedly, her pale face covered in cold sweat. She had bit her tongue hard, pulling herself back to reality just a second before passing out. She could not be thrown overboard. Without a doubt, she'd perish. Her body was too weak and couldn't withstand any more turmoil. She breathed with difficulty, her fingernails scraping into the polished wooden deck. Dragging her heavy body forward, she crawled towards the pair of well-muscled legs in her blurry vision, until her bloodied fingers clutched the man's bespoke pants. "Please, don't throw me overboard." Her misty eyes were akin to a helpless kitten's. Her white dress was torn and drenched to the skin, unable to conceal her emaciated, yet delicate figure. Her alluring clavicle, her fair skin scattered with injuries, her dark hair that fell in waves to her waist, like a beautiful and tormented mermaid, defenseless and vulnerable with nowhere to go. Seduction was lethal. Anyone who saw her would feel a surge of pity. The man gazed down at her. With dispassionate eyes, he allowed her to crawl up his lap. His cool fingers gently caressed her slender jaw, murmuring hoarsely, "You're the first woman to dare climb on me." Watching this scene, his assistant Xander Gray almost jumped out of his skin. The girl's sopping dress and bloodied fingers had soiled Sir's pants. Normally, Sir would have immediately taken her life. At this moment, everyone present heightened their vigilance as if facing a formidable foe, while Xander hurried aside to investigate the girl's identity. Yal, however, seemed oblivious to the impending danger. She was dazed, desperately clutching the man's collar. "Please don't throw me overboard. I'll do whatever you want." Chapter 2. Take Yal Home. A destructive desire appeared in the depths of Jordan's gloomy eyes. "Do you know who I am? Do you not fear death?" Yale had no idea whom she was clinging onto. "Help me." The sea breeze sailed by. With steely eyes, Jordan stood up from his wheelchair with the girl in his arms, his long, sinewy legs well defined under his bespoke pants. With strong, steady strides, he carried Yael into the cabin. His bodyguards followed behind like a grand procession. Inside the luxurious master suite, Jordan unbuttoned his shirt with pale, slender fingers as he commanded Xander, "Get out. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter." Xander was shocked. "Sir, it's dangerous. Your body—" "One must always hold vigilance against others. Especially this girl of unknown origins. What if—" "Get out." The oppressive tone was enveloped in wintry coldness. No one dared defy his orders. Xander could only lead the bodyguards out of the cabin. The luxurious master suite was furnished in cool, masculine tones. A faint scent of medicine lingered. The dim light from the Romanesque wall lamp illuminated the girl's scarred skin. Jordan's intense gaze swept across her visage. With a personality that was both unrelenting and unrestrained, anyone who dared provoke him should face the consequences. No matter who you are, don't regret this. That night, Yael was in a daze, lost in a world of blurry dreams. In the dreams, she relived the memories of the past Yael. Within the splendors of Brooke's mansion, her father brought home Willa, who was wearing a princess frock. Ellie, this is the daughter of Daddy's best friend. From now on, she is your sister. We must all treat her well, understand? At that time, the dainty and doll-faced Willa was like an angel in the eyes of the innocent Yael. In the darkness of nightfall, however, Willa revealed a hideous and terrifying smile. Dimwit, I like your room. Go sleep in the bathroom. Daddy and our brothers adore me most. I am the darling of the family. The fool is but a fool, a disgrace to the Brooks family. I am the pride of the Brooks family. Yael Brooks, get lost. From now on, the mental hospital shall be your home, and I will be the true princess. In the eerie psychiatric institution, shrouded in darkness and terror, Yael was bound tightly on a patient bed, suffering the torture of electroshocks. The unbearable agony and the heart-wrenching screams echoed in her ears, Daddy! Daddy, save me. I won't make you angry anymore. I'll behave. Please, Daddy, come get me. I want to go home. A cold tear slid down from her eye. In the master suite of the yacht, Yael slowly opened her eyes, her gaze hollow. A dull pain throbbed in her heart, stifling her breaths. The pain from the electroshocks had seeped into her bones, causing her to tremble with overwhelming hatred. Her heart ached for the past Yael, who never made it home before her death. Poor Yael waited in pain and despair, desperate for her family to take her home, but what did she get in return? A conspiracy and betrayal by her own blood. The Brooks family, for the sake of Willa, recovered the broken Yael from hell just to send her down another. However, Yael ended her life by jumping into the sea, which shattered their plans. Would they feel regret? Slowly, she sat up on bed, unconcerned over how she ended there. Looking out the window, she noticed the yacht had docked and casually reached out for a black shirt and pants within her sight. After dressing, she knotted the shirt at her hips and rolled up the pants. The sea breeze fanned her long, wavy curls, revealing her pale face. She took a last glance at the empty suite. With bloodlust in her eyes, she disappeared out of the window. She couldn't wait another minute. She wanted to bring Yael home. And she'd completely forgotten the man she tearfully pleaded with in her dreams last night. A few minutes later, a side door in the suite was pushed open. Jordan coolly stepped out of the bathroom with his pale, handsome face. The glow from the morning sun fell on the man's perfect profile, indescribably striking and noble. He had taken a cold shower and was now draped in a black silk robe, his pale yet sexy pectoral muscles faintly visible to the eye. When his eyes fell on the empty bed, his pupils constricted. The ambiance around him dropped to freezing point. Xander! There was no response from behind the door. Jordan's cold eyes slightly narrowed with menace. Xander Gray. Roll in here now. At that moment, Xander rushed in through the door. Sir. Where is she? Jordan pointed to the empty bed. Xander was shocked. Sir, are you referring to the girl from last night? Wasn't she in your room all this time? Jordan's temper, due to his illness, was erratic and volatile. The savagery in his eyes could barely be contained, like a trapped beast about to break free from its cage, a precursor to one of his explosive rages. Find her. Last night, she was burrowed in his arms and whimpering like a kitten, yet she left without a word once she awoke in the morning. She didn't even want to know who he was. Very well. Yes, sir. Xander didn't dare delay and quickly sent the bodyguards out to search. He mustn't let Sir fall ill. The consequences would be unthinkable. However, not a trace of the girl was found after searching the entire yacht. 5 minutes later, Xander hurried back with beads of cold sweat forming on top of his head. Sir, surveillance showed that the girl disembarked the yacht 10 minutes ago. He showed the surveillance recording to Jordan. Jordan stood in place, his gaze fixed on the figure displayed on the screen. His left hand clenched into a fist at his side, veins visibly popping. Xander didn't dare look Jordan in the face and quickly suggested, "But sir, as long as she's within the borders of India, it wouldn't be difficult to locate her. I'll definitely track her down." I'm giving you 2 hours. Yes, sir, but we should also get on shore. Everyone is awaiting your return. Today is the day you promised to get wed, and the state's medical team is already waiting for you at the villa. News of Sir picking up a girl last night had somehow leaked to the York family. Sir usually distanced himself from women, and even seemed to possess a strong aversion towards them. Improbably, that girl had now disrupted his mood, greatly affecting his emotions. Tonight would be Sir's wedding. If Xander truly obeyed him and brought that girl back, it would undoubtedly cause a huge stir in the York family. But if she couldn't be found, Xander daren't imagine the consequences. Chapter 3. Are you the one who stole my fiancé? At this century, Old Brooks Mansion, security was tight outside the palatial, wrought iron gates. The lavish Brooks Mansion was nestled within high walls of white. This was the most prestigious family in the state of India. At this moment, the air in the main hall was tensed and stifling. Mrs. Una Brooks, dressed in resplendent purple, was seated on the couch, comforting Willa. Her dress accentuated her comely figure. Time seemed to leave no mark on her, encapsulating her beauty and elegance instead. Stop crying, Willie. Mommy will never let you marry that sick man, Jordan York. Willa, wearing a haute couture white tulle dress, bit her lips tightly. The crystals embellished at her chest sparkled brilliantly as the fringes on the dress swayed, portraying the image of an innocent beauty. Her eyes were red from crying. But Mommy, the wedding convoy from the Yorks is arriving soon. If there's no one to greet them, Jordan York will not spare our family. Looking as if she's made up her mind, Willa smiled wanly at Una. Mommy, if we can't find my sister, I'll just get married. She lifted her dress and kneeled down with a thud, her eyes filled with tears, her desperation and bravery evident as she bowed deeply to Una. Mommy, thank you for raising me these years. After leaving, I don't know if I will come back alive. Daddy, yourself and my brothers, please take good care. Hearing these words, Una hugged her adopted daughter from the ground with heartache. Willie, Mommy will never let you go. You are the daughter of the Brooks family, destined to marry Joshua, the heir of the York family, not that sickly, illegitimate fiend. Una clenched her fist tightly. Her eyes gazed towards the Brooks family steward. Have you found her yet? The steward, Frank, reported with a solemn expression. Madam, we have swept the area where the incident occurred, but to no avail. I'm afraid. Una turned a shade paler. Even if she hadn't seen her biological daughter for many years, Yael was nonetheless born from her flesh. It hurt to lose her so abruptly. But between her 2 daughters, she had to protect one. A pang of pain stung her heart. Una mustered herself. Dead or alive, a replacement bride must be sent to the Yorks tonight. Whoever dares send Willie, I'll fight them to death. Yes, madame. Hearing this, Willa, who was kneeling at Una's knees, lowered her head and hid a devious smile. The next moment, a cold and aloof voice broke the silence. You can cease the search. I'm here. Everyone turned towards the grand spiral staircase. Descending from the upper floor was a girl dressed in a white shirt and black pants, her long, wavy curls cascading down to her slender waist. Her pale cheeks bore no trace of color, cold and lifeless. Looking into her dark, desolate eyes, one might mistake her for an emotionless specter. Her gaunt frame was almost skeletal. Across her exposed skin were countless intersecting scars, both old and new. Everyone was momentarily taken aback at the sight of her. Who was this? Only the elderly butler who had served the Brooks family for most of his life went up to her, asking in shock, "Are you Miss Yael?" Yael stood atop the stairway, looking down at them from her vantage point, her lips curled up in a contemptuous smile. Una was stunned, unable to believe her eyes. Was this the daughter she carried in her womb for 10 months? The 10-year-old Yael, who was sent away, was petite and bore the intelligence of a 5-year-old child. Una's entire life had been one of pride and prestige, but her only daughter was intellectually challenged. Not only was Yael a fool, she was also prone to causing trouble, bringing shame to the Brooks family. For the sake of the family's reputation, they could only reluctantly send her to a private psychiatric institution for treatment. This incarceration lasted a decade. Even though Una had not seen her in 10 years, Yael was, after all, her flesh and blood. Looking at her scarred appearance, Una's eyes turned red. She took a step forward, her heart heavy with emotion. Yaeli. Beside her, Willa's expression darkened. She darted ahead and made a beeline for Yael, swiftly intercepting the mother-daughter reunion. With guilt and remorse in her eyes, Yaeli, is it you? You're finally back. Where did you go tonight? Don't you know that our whole family is worried about you? She reached out for Yael, but the latter avoided her hand. This hand, whenever it reached out to her the same way in the past, always led to misunderstandings, scolding and punishments for the past Yael, who was subsequently regarded as a disobedient and malicious child. After all these years, her tactics hadn't changed. Are you the one who stole my fiancé? Yael's gaze was full of scorn, looking down at Willa as if she were muck. Hearing this, Willa's graceful figure swayed and her face turned pale. Looking aggrieved, she burst into tears. Yaeli? I didn't do it on purpose. Joshua and I are truly in love. I assumed you would understand us. Wasn't it like this before? Anything she liked, as long as she wanted, she could snatch from Yael. Back then, Yael dared not utter a word and would obediently follow her around, calling her big sister. Yet now, Yael seemed completely unaffected. Her gaze grew increasingly cold as it landed on Willa. Yael sneered as she took a step toward Willa. How absurd to see someone play an innocent mistress so convincingly. You shamelessly stole my fiancé, yet you want me to marry a sickly, odious man in your place? Well planned indeed. Plotting and scheming my admittance into a mental faculty, shamelessly enjoying everything that originally belonged to me. Did you think I'm too foolish to compete with you? That you're the cherished daughter of the Brooks family, while I'm an aunt at your mercy? No, that's not true. Willa's eyes welled up with tears. Yaylee, you're misunderstanding me. She stumbled, feeling the strong momentum from Yael. How could this happen? How could the dim-witted Yael, who used to be so easily manipulated, capable of nothing but tears, now question her with such lucidity? That aura, even though she was dressed in only a plain ensemble, even though she looked thin as a skeleton, made Willa tremble with fear. A vicious light crossed Willa's eyes as she reached out for Yael again. Gripping her hand tightly, Willa almost kneeled in remorse. I never wanted to take anything from you. Since you mind, I'll return Joshua to you. If Jordan wishes to marry me, I'll do it and won't let our family suffer. Are you satisfied now, Yaylee? Unbeknownst to all, a brooch pin was ruthlessly pierced into Yael's palm amidst Willa's tears. Following that, Willa screamed as she tumbled down the stairs and fell like a broken angel. Blood splattered everywhere. Willie. Chapter 4. Fake Bride. On the lower floor, Yuna shrieked in horror at the scene. Her eyes were filled with shock and pain as she gathered her skirt and rushed over. Willie! The blood on the ground had dyed Willa's dress a dark red. Her face blanched as she cried out, Mommy, don't blame my sister. It wasn't intentional. It was my own carelessness. At the end of her words, she bit her lips in pain. Hurt so. She looked so fragile and forbearing. The maternal love and guilt in the depths of Yuna's heart were triggered. Yuna released Willa from her arms. Slap! A sharp, resounding slap. Yael's head skewed from the impact. Her long, dark curls curtained her swelling cheek. Yet she smiled indifferently, looking like a rebellious adolescent. With teary eyes, Yuna stared at Yael in sorrow and disappointment. Willie's your sister. How could you do this to her? Yaylee, you've really let Mommy down. With an icy gaze, Yael looked up and chuckled. She's not my sister. You dare quibble. Aggrieved and angered, Yuna steeled her heart. You've completely disgraced the Brooks family. Henceforth, you are no daughter of mine. Someone take her to the Yorks immediately. Tie her up if you have to. Yael's eyes widened in disbelief. Her laughter cold. No need, I'll go myself. Such a family, she didn't give a damn. She made a decision on behalf of the past, Yael. Let's dissolve this worthless familial tie. Yael stood calm and poised, as if she had seen through the vicissitudes of life. With this marriage, I repay you for giving me life. From this day on, we owe each other nothing. I am no longer a daughter of the Brooks family. They all adore Willa, don't they? Let Willa be their daughter then. Swallowing the metallic taste of blood at the corner of her mouth, Yael descended the stairs with a swollen cheek, not giving the Brooks family another glance. It was as if she returned just to get slapped and trapped. Yuna never expected those words. Tears hung at the corners of her eyes. She finally realized her biological daughter was no longer the foolish girl who knew only to cry after making mistakes. Regret had to wash her the moment she struck Yael. But before she could take a step after the ladder, there was a feeble tug at her skirt. Willa's eyes were filled with tears, her voice suppressed with pain and grievance. Mommy, it hurts so much. Yuna looked down, seeing Willa's pale face covered in cold sweat, looking near death. She was shocked and horrified. Willie. Call for an ambulance at once. She had no time to think about anything else. Willa was raised with a silver spoon and couldn't endure hardship. She needed to be taken to the hospital immediately. The wedding convoy dispatched by the York family arrived at the Brooks mansion. Yael boarded the limousine without looking back, devoid of any lingering emotions. The ritzy fleet of Rolls-Royce headed towards a secluded private island. This was the place where Jordan recuperated. The island was surrounded by the sea with only one road leading inland. It was eerie and cold. The winds rose and howled like a gateway to hell. A colossal stone villa stood majestically on the island. In the courtyard, someone was trimming the lawn. Whispers could be heard around the estate, murmuring about the substitute bride of the York family's firstborn. As soon as the convoy came to a stop, an old butler in a tailcoat alighted from one of the Rolls-Royce and stepped forward to open the limousine door. "Someone take Madame to her room." The limousine door opened and a cold voice sounded from within. "There's no need." A shapely leg descended from the limousine, followed by a svelte figure, beautifully silhouetted in a luxurious bridal gown. The subtle light illuminated her fair skin. Her previously pallid face now radiated with vitality, adorned with exquisite makeup that perfectly enhanced her flawless features. Long, dark curls cascaded in waves to her slender waist. Her delicate and graceful figure, coupled with her cold and resolute demeanor, left everyone in awe and admiration. Could this possibly be the same disheveled and disgraced daughter of the Brooks family from just moments ago? Why did she seem like a completely different person? Everyone was astounded, including the old butler, Louis, who had seen and encountered much in his lifetime. "Madame, is that really you?" Yael raised a brow and lightly lifted her skirt. "Aren't we heading to the bridal suite? Butler, please lead the way." She merely changed into a bridal gown, slapped on some makeup, and concealed her scars during the ride. "What's the kerfuffle?" Louis quickly nodded. Yes, right this way, madam." As he led the way, Louis couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity when he thought about everything that Madame, who looked so beautiful and exquisite, was about to endure. Under the crowd's gaze, Yael was led to the servants' quarters. A few older servants hid in the corner, looking at her with either curiosity or mockery, as if watching a joke. Louis arranged a servant's accommodation for her. "Madam, this is your room." Yael's cold, charming eyes glanced around the room, her lips curled in a faint smirk. So she had overthought it. A bridal suite? Clearly, the York family did not welcome the bride, and this was the presage to their disapproval. The room was dark and dingy. A sliver of light filtered in through a tiny window. It was akin to a gloomy prison cell. This reminded Yael of the private psychiatric institution where the past Yael spent 10 years in misery. She straightened her delicate shoulders and inquired politely, "Where's the groom?" "Sir is weak and often ill. He can't see anyone for now," Louis answered respectfully. "Madam, please feel at home here. You can come to me for anything you need." With that, he retreated from the room. Yael removed her veil and sat on the bed, taking in her surroundings with a half smile. Jordan York, the mercurial and sickly illegitimate son of the York family, whose name could incite statewide terror in Hania, the elder brother of Joshua York. So now, she was the elder sister-in-law of that scumbag? Suddenly, Yael found her sickly husband particularly interesting. Too weak and ill to meet anyone? A cunning light sparked in Yael's eyes. Chapter 5. Illness. In the hall of the villa. The ornately carved doors and luxurious marble floors reflected an oppressive light. In the shadows, Jordan, dressed in black, sat in his wheelchair in front of a glass wall. A luxuriant throw in black fur covered his knees. The black silk shirt clung to his lean body with 2 buttons undone, revealing his collarbone and Adam's apple. No matter how bright the light was, it could not dispel the air of gloom that shrouded him. In his hand was a dossier on the Brooks family's foolish daughter. He had merely gone out for a sail, and the York and Brooks families dared orchestrate such deception against him. They dared to replace the bride with a fool in his absence. Did they see him as a joke? Rage surged in Jordan's eyes, revealing a trace of bloodlust, signaling an imminent outburst. Louis, who came to report on the new bride's situation, paused in unease before bowing respectfully. "Sir." "What is it?" In the presence of the old butler, the fury in Jordan's eyes slightly subsided, his voice icy. "Sir," Louis hesitated, not wishing to anger him further, yet unable to stay silent about the innocent young lady. "Madam is delicate and frail. I'm afraid it's unsuitable for her to reside in that dark servant's room." Thud. Jordan flung the dossier to the ground, his eyes flashing coldly. "You want to plead for a fool?" Louis picked up the black fur throw that had slipped onto the ground, draping it over the man's knees. Actually, perhaps the news is exaggerated. Madame isn't as slow-witted as rumored. A fool couldn't possibly possess such calm, limpid eyes. Something was not right. But Jordan hurled off the fur throw, his rage boiling over. "That woman is irrelevant. Both the Yorks and Brooks families conspired to trick me. I will not forget this." The bloodlust in Jordan's eyes could no longer be suppressed. His lips curled sinisterly. The grudge against the 2 families had to be repaid. That substitute fool, too, would not be spared. "Assign all the chores to that fool. Withhold food and rest if she doesn't complete them." He paused, narrowing his reddened eyes. "Notify the York family. Tomorrow I will bring the new bride to greet her in-laws. Since they wish to see him humiliated, he would grant them a good performance in return." Louis, fully cognizant of Jordan's temperament, understood that dissuasion was futile and could only comply. Tomorrow York Castle would be engulfed in a shitstorm. Then again, they indeed went overboard this time and deserved a lesson. Just that, the poor bride. 10 minutes later. Yael had changed out of the bridal gown into her former white shirt and black pants. Looking into the mirror, she was pleased with the reflection. This body, though weak, carried a decent figure, albeit lacking in muscles. An approaching servant noticed Yael without her uniform and sternly chastised, "Who gave you the permission to wear your own clothes? All servants here must wear uniforms." "But I'm the madam here," Yael responded nonchalantly as she tied up her hair. Did this fool actually think she could become the madam? She was but a fake bride. The servant looked at her in disdain. "You truly consider yourself a master here? As instructed by Sir, tonight you must complete all the chores in the villa. Don't even think about." The next instant, the hairbrush in Yael's hand flew toward the servant, who didn't manage to finish her rant before her plump figure fell to the ground, unconscious from the blow. Noisy. Yael's eyes were cold and indifferent as she applied makeup to her face. Tonight was her wedding night. She certainly had no time for chores. Since her husband was thinking of her defeatable, she decided to take the initiative to pay him a visit. In the master bedroom of the villa, Xander had returned from the manhunt. He really wished to slap himself for making grand promises just to appease Sir that morning. Now he had to bite the bullet and report the bad news. Sir, I apologize. We have searched the entire database and surveillance of Linnea, but couldn't find the girl from last night. Hearing this, Jordan's eyes turned glacial, his hand fisted by his side. 5 hours had passed since morning. His patience had run dry. Xander immediately lowered his head in fear, breaking out in cold sweat. Sir, please don't get agitated. Forgive me for my inefficiency. Give me a bit more. Get out. Jordan violently smashed a teacup. Sensing the danger, everyone scrambled off in terror. Louis quickly instructed, "Alert, sir's doctor!" With veins bulging, Jordan furiously swiped at the surrounding objects. A broken porcelain had sliced his hand, blood smeared everywhere. It's too late. Tie me up. Jordan gritted his teeth, struggling to suppress the raging beast within. But Louis looked at Jordan in distress, unable to bring himself to do it. Earlier in the day, the medical team had conducted an examination on Sir. The results were not promising. Everyone knew that Sir's condition had begun to deteriorate. He couldn't withstand any agitation. Out of sheer desperation, the old patriarch decided to marry Sir off, hoping it might bring luck. Sir had so far managed to suppress his wrath regarding the fake bride. Unexpectedly, he snapped over some girl of unknown origin. What should they do now? Xander had his men tie up Jordan. The tumor's pressure on the cranial nerves made the latter extremely volatile. Once an attack struck, his destructive impulses were overwhelming. Inside the room, everyone struggled to restrain Jordan to the bed, oblivious to their surroundings. Outside the window, in a blind spot without surveillance, a pair of cold eyes watched the scene with great interest. When everyone else had left the room, leaving only Jordan bounded on the bed, Yale lightly tousled her hair and gave an impish grin. Chapter 6. Underestimating Her. Outside the window, the night was dark as the cool winds blew. Inside the room, on the enormous plush bed, the man's black silk shirt bared open, exposing his sexy collarbone. Unfortunately, the dreamy image was marred by his wild, frenzied expression and crimson eyes. Yael blew at her bangs and leapt gracefully through the window, landing elegantly on the polished marble floor. Jordan, highly alert, turned his head. Who's there? The next second, a sharp, gleaming dagger was pressed against his neck. Don't move, and don't shout otherwise. The dagger slowly slid across his neck, drawing blood with a shallow cut. Jordan grunted softly in pain. Engulfed by the girl's presence, the vaguely familiar scent instantly calmed him. For a moment, his mind regained clarity. He thought of the girl from last night. Disregarding the dagger at his neck, he looked up at her. A petite face with a hint of a smirk at the corner of her lips came to sight. Her eyes were ringed with black makeup, her eyelashes heavy with dark mascara, looking like a dreadful goth. She was dressed simply in a white shirt and black pants. Although her figure was svelte and alluring, she was far from the delicate girl he had been longing for. Caught between elation and disappointment, the crimson in Jordan's eyes rose again. The veins in his bounded hands bulged as he snarled, "Get lost if you don't want to die." Instead of retreating, Yael boldly sat herself on the bed in a sultry manner. The dagger in her hand moved downwards, its tip pressed against the man's chest. What? Disappointed? It seemed that her sickly husband was really sick. In the head? Just now, she vaguely heard their conversation from outside. This man was sick from rage because he couldn't locate his beloved. If she wasn't mistaken, that woman was Willa. Even though she was a substitute, they were already a wedded couple. Was he still harboring hopes on Willa? Who would have thought that Willa, that snake, was so sought after, beguiling even the sick? Yao's taunt thoroughly infuriated Jordan. Unfortunately, he was rendered immobile by the bonds on his limbs. His ruthless glare cut like a sharp knife. Gout! Yao smiled brightly in provocation. Jordan York, I'm here to cut a deal. Conferring will be tough if you maintain this attitude. A deal? Who do you think you are? Jordan's lips curled up coldly, delivering yourself into the lion's den. You must be truly foolish. Yael raised a brow. So you have guessed my identity? Jordan narrowed his eyes, not saying a word. Not to mention the villa. Security on the entire island was so tight that not even a fly would go unnoticed. This unwelcome visitor could only be the fool who arrived on the island today. Yal straightened up and got down to business. Let's cut to the chase then. Willa disdains you, and I'm a scapegoat. Since we're both victims, how about coexisting peacefully? Let me be the young madam of the York family, and I'll cure your illness. Deal? She had agreed to this marriage with an agenda. She wanted to seek justice for silly Yael. She wanted that snake and scumbag to go on their knees to acknowledge her as the elder sister-in-law, and to achieve that she needed Jordan, the stepping stone. Therefore, she was willing to overlook his welcoming treatment of throwing her with the servants. Jordan sneered, a fool who bites off more than she can chew. He dared call her a fool? Yael's cold eyes narrowed. And you, a sickie, think you're noble? Her retort almost made Jordan spew blood. Yael went straight to the point. Your eyes are bloodshot, your veins are bulging. It's clear you've been suffering from chronic headaches, sleep disorders, and severe psychological issues. Her bright eyes swept over his face. Though I don't know how long you've had these symptoms, it's obvious your cranial nerves are being compressed, causing your mood disorders. Simply put, you have a brain tumor. Jordan locked sharp eyes on her. A fool? Who could diagnose his condition at a glance? Who exactly are you? Yael knew she had hit the mark. She arched her brows in arrogance. Who am I? I'm obviously your wife, Yael Brooks. She twirled and tossed the dagger into the air, deftly catching its tip with precision. So, what do you say? Are you keen to collaborate with me? I'll cure your illness. You're free to pursue anyone thereafter, as long as you allow me to temporarily hold on to the title of Mrs. Jordan York. They could part ways once she found her feet in this world. Jordan squinted. You think you can do it? Even the world's leading neurosurgeons shook their heads at his condition. Did this last think she could fool him with a few words? Sure. Yael put away the dagger and placed her slender fingers on his head, pressing on various acupressure points. The redness in Jordan's eyes receded slightly, and he derided, That's it? Was he disparaging her skills? You like it rough? A flash of silver. Within seconds, filiform needles were inserted with precision into several acupressure points on his head. The redness in Jordan's eyes had receded significantly by the time the needles were withdrawn. How's it now? Do you feel refreshed and less agitated? Untie me. Do you really take me for a fool? Yael jested airily as she kept away her needles. If you wish to be untied, let me live in comfort like the real young madam of the York family. Then I'll... Swish. Something sharp suddenly pressed against her back. Yael's movement stopped abruptly, her heart skipping a beat. Chapter 7. Matrimonial Night. Yael, who had spent her previous life in battlefields, was extremely vigilant. In spite of that, she was a tad too slow, not expecting her sickly husband to possess such agility and speed. Impressive! She underestimated him. He must have loosened the bonds while she was performing acupuncture, intentionally feigning helplessness to lower her guard. How cunning! Jordan pressed his chest against her back as he took the needles from her. Holding a switchblade against her neck, he gripped her nape firmly with his other hand. Her slender neck was so delicate, all it took was a little force to crush it. His voice, now calm, was both deep and seductive. Negotiating with me on my turf? Are you qualified? Yael's back went cold. This man was more dangerous than she had imagined. But the more precarious the situation, the calmer she had to be. Don't you know the answer? Yael replied lazily. Be careful, Jordan York. Don't slip up and lose such a good wife, not to mention the only person who can save your life. Oops, my hand slipped. The man behind her deliberately moved his hand. The switchblade grazed her neck. A streak of blood stained her fair skin. Winston Payne, Jordan York. Yael swiftly swung around, her throat about to be slashed by the switchblade. Jordan's pupils shrank, hastily withdrawing his hand. Yael smiled smugly. Seems you can't bear to see me dead. You lose. Jordan stiffened, the face of the girl before him merging with the one from last night. He gripped her slender waist and stared intently at her. Where were you last night? Yael was startled. Had he discovered something? Impossible! At Brooks Mansion, of course. Yael's eyes sparkled enchantingly. Why? Are you mesmerized by my good looks? That's easy. After all, we're a married couple now. As she spoke, her fingers moved slightly. The dagger in her hand sliced through the man's black silk shirt, revealing his firm pectoral muscles. Jordan's gaze turned cold. In the next moment, Yael found herself pinned under him, her limbs domineeringly restrained in an ambiguous posture. Was it an illusion? The lass before him was like a wildcat, bearing no resemblance to the girl from last night. And she wasn't foolish at all, but crafty and rather clever. Otherwise, how could she match his wits, diagnose his condition at a glance, and even alleviate his pain? Either his true condition had been leaked, or this girl truly possessed extraordinary medical skills. He lowered his gaze and sneered. Delusional? Footsteps echoed outside the door. Louis knocked on the door frantically. Sir, something's wrong. Madam is missing. Receiving no response, Xander, who stood next to the old butler, kicked the door open. Behind them was the medical team. When the door opened, everyone was stunned. The scene was bloody yet provocative. Yannick Yanes, Jordan's primary care doctor, walked in and saw the scene. His elegant and handsome face showed a hint of astonishment. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Can someone tell me what's going on? Wasn't Jordan having an episode requiring immediate medical care? How did he end up on top of a woman? And judging from the tense atmosphere, it appeared things were growing intense. Could this be? Xander was dumbfounded. How was he supposed to know? And how had Sir recovered so quickly? In the past, each attack would result in a dire situation, requiring large doses of sedatives to calm Sir's emotions, which in turn accelerated the degeneration of his condition. It was impossible for Sir to recover on his own. For so many years, all the top neurosurgeons had been helpless. This was unbelievable. Moreover, who was this girl? Jordan's expression was extremely unpleasant. He glared at the newcomers, stood up tall, and tossed Yal into Xander's arms. Tugging at his collar, he exhaled sharply. Only now did you discover the person was missing? Did you expect me to find her? His imposing demeanor intimidated everyone present. Looking incredulously at Yal's freakish face, Louis was flabbergasted. This is Madame? It couldn't be, could it? He had just seen her during the day. How could she have changed so drastically? What happened to her face? Yal nodded. Even in the face of danger, she didn't forget to raise a brow and smiled lightly. Why, butler? Have you forgotten me so quickly? Louis furrowed his brows, breaking out in cold sweat. Madam, weren't you in the servants' quarters? Was his memory failing him due to old age? Yael replied, Oh, tonight is our matrimonial night. How can we sleep in separate rooms? Hearing this, Louis's face turned a bright red. Yannick, greatly entertained by the events, folded his arms and took in the scene. This was Yael Brooks, the substitute bride. Interesting. Yannick approached with the medical team to examine Jordan's condition. Despite his amusement, he remained highly professional, his primary concern being Jordan's health. Didn't he just experience an episode? How did he recover so quickly? Something's off. Jordan's expression remained neutral, his tall frame perfectly composed as he lounged on a designer couch. He remained cold and dignified, as if an attack did not occur. Casting a cold glance at Yael, he ordered, Send her back to the servants' quarters. If she goes missing again, all of you will bear the consequences. Xander immediately obeyed. Yes, sir. Yael did not expect this man to be so ungrateful, burning bridges. Without me, would you have recovered so quickly? She had alleviated his condition just now. But Yael squinted her eyes and pursed her lips, studying Jordan's face. Jordan, who had seemed normal, suddenly turned a deathly pale. His eyes reddened once more. Fresh blood trickled down from his nose. As his head throbbed with pain, Jordan's body swayed and almost collapsed on the couch. Everyone was taken aback. Louis rushed forward in panic. Sir. Chapter 8, Descendants Only. Yannick quickly examined Jordan's body, his expression instantly changing. He turned to Yael, his face stern. What did you do to him? Louis was even more alarmed, his face pale with fear as he looked at Yael in disbelief. Madam, Sir is a sick man. How could you act against him? If anything happens to Sir, you'll be done for. Originally, Louis had viewed Yael differently, but his concern for Jordan now overwhelmed him. Seeing the wounds on Jordan's neck, likely to be caused by Yael, he began to reproach her. Yael didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled lightly. I simply performed acupuncture on him, temporarily suppressing his agitation, and employed a little trick at the same time. Not only did she suppress Jordan's agitation temporarily, she also stimulated his latent violence. All just for this moment to showcase her skills. Madam, you are not a doctor, you... Louis clearly didn't believe her. Jordan, who was in excruciating pain, let out a sudden roar and violently threw off the doctors trying to calm him. He fell to one knee on the floor, the veins on his forehead popping, his exposed chest heaving forcefully. Yannick swiftly prepared a sedative, but was flung aside by Jordan before he could approach. This was the moment for Yael. Taking advantage of the chaos, Yael promptly struck Xander with a needle, freeing herself from his grasp. Vaulting gracefully towards Jordan, she quickly inserted a needle into his head. Jordan instantly froze, his chest heaving heavily still, the neurological pain unbearable. Yannick was shocked, his face changing hue. His condition is unique. You cannot apply acupuncture on him so casually. Yael paid no heed, her expression unchanged. With swift precision, she inserted a few more needles. The redness in Jordan's eyes suddenly dissipated. His heaving chest gradually calmed. His head tilted slightly, and he unexpectedly fell asleep, leaning against Yael. Everyone was stunned, staring incredulously at Yael, unable to believe that a fool could actually perform acupuncture. Moreover, without sedatives, she managed to calm Jordan to sleep in such a short time. This was beyond anyone's accomplishment. Looking at Yael in amazement, Yannick asked with suppressed excitement, "How did you do this?" He had attempted acupuncture before, but it only exacerbated Jordan's agitation every time. Yael glanced at the refined gentleman before her, family secret passed on to descendants only. In other words, if he wanted to know, he would have to acknowledge her as his mother. Yannick. Dusting her hands, Yael disdainfully pushed Jordan towards him. Help him to bed, she instructed, stretching her muscles. He should be able to get 5 to 6 hours of sleep tonight. Oh, and by the way, he seems to have been chronically poisoned. With that, she gave a wave and departed in style. Poisoned? Everyone froze at the revelation. Time ticked by. When Jordan woke, it was indeed 6 hours later. Yannick was seated by the bed, studying the CT scans in his hands. Seeing Jordan wake, he remarked with some admiration, exactly 6 hours, no more, no less. Jordan was confused, but feeling extremely refreshed from his sleep. How did I fall asleep? A young lady performed acupuncture on you, and you fell asleep. Yannick continued solemnly. There's something I must tell you. While you were sleeping, I conducted a full-body examination on you. Just as she said, you indeed have been chronically poisoned. But this toxin is very peculiar. I have yet to ascertain its source. Poisoned? Under the light, Jordan's lips pressed into a thin line. His demeanor turned frosty. I truly underestimated them. Yannick looked regretful. It's my negligence for not detecting earlier. If it weren't for that young lady with extraordinary medical skills. By the way, is she really the fool you married from the Brooks family? Or is she some fling you attracted? Jordan sneered. Her? Extraordinary medical skills? Yannick was universally recognized as a medical genius, a prodigy of the field. Few people in the world could earn his praise. Yeah, that fool, was she truly worthy? Yet Yannick insisted, indeed. Besides administering acupuncture, she also discovered the toxin in your body. Jordan's eyes darkened. Yael discovered the toxin in his body? How many more secrets were there hidden in Yael Brooks? He couldn't believe that a true fool could possess such medical skills. The next day, Xander handed over the latest investigation report on Yael. The report confirmed her incarceration in the private psychiatric institution over the last 10 years. She was taken back by the Brooks family just yesterday. The rest of her information remained as clean as a slate. But Jordan had a hunch that cleaner the record, the more suspicious things were. A fool who spent a decade in a mental facility? From where did she acquire her medical skills? Where is she? Jordan had returned to his normal self. He set down the file in his hand. His tall and dignified figure was wrapped in a black bespoke suit, his silhouette resembling a Renaissance masterpiece. The morning light enveloped his broad shoulders, softening his cold aura. His pale and gloomy face was now bathed in a layer of light. Louis hesitated for a moment before replying, "Madame is resting in the servants' quarters." "So well behaved?" Jordan's deep eyes dimmed slightly. He raised his hand and instructed, "Get her dressed and ready for York Castle." "Yes, sir." Because of the misunderstanding last night, Louis felt guilty towards Yael. When he arrived at the servants' quarters, he found her dressed in a clean outfit of black and white, sitting elegantly at the table having breakfast. Beside her, Lonnie, the servant who was knocked out last night, was now dutifully serving her tea. "This?" Louis approached with a questioning look. "Madam, sir instructed me to get you ready for a visit to York Castle." "York Castle?" Yael's bright eyes swept over the old butler. She elegantly sipped the tea handed to her by Lonnie, set it down and said a cool voice, "I'm not going." Chapter 9. Intentional Disgrace. Louis was stunned, not knowing from where Yael got the courage to refuse. "But this is an order from Sir." "Then let him come and tell me himself." The fork in her hand twirled into the air before landing perfectly between her slender fingers. In the dressing room. Jordan's pale fingers tightened around his Ulysses Nardin-Blas tourbillon, his voice piercing cold like ice shards. "Let me go personally?" Louis broke out in cold sweat for Yael. "Yes." A mocking smile appeared on Jordan's lips. Anyone else who dared make such demands would have been mutilated to death. But thinking of Yannick's words, if she could really cure his illness, wouldn't it be a shame if she died just like that? So, under the incredulous gaze of everyone in the villa, the noble sir in their eyes actually condescended to visit the servants' quarters. Jordan was dressed in a new black silk shirt with an exquisite brooch pinned to his chest. Exuding a frosty chill, he walked against the light, making it hard for anyone to look directly at him. His deep eyes fixed unwaveringly on Yael's petite face, heavily painted with exaggerated smoky eye makeup. His long, lean legs stopped before her. Seeing her still calmly slicing her toast, a hint of irritation appeared in his eyes. "Are you satisfied now that I've come to invite you personally?" His tall shadow loomed over her. Yael looked up at him, noticing his finely sculpted jawline. The night had passed. His condition seemed much better today. "To satisfy me is simple, Mr. York. Just consider my request from last night." Yael languidly leaned back in her chair with an air of arrogance. Jordan's intense gaze turned cold. Seeing that, Yael frowned. "If you're unwilling to, then I'm afraid I can't cooperate with you." "You're the first person to dare negotiate terms with me." Yael held his gaze, even reaching out to tug at his tie, pulling him closer. "So what?" If she weren't of use, Jordan really wished to strangle her on the spot. His Adam's apple bobbed as he enunciated each word emphatically. "The role of Mrs. Jordan York must be played according to my specifications. Now go get changed and redo your makeup. We're going to York Castle." Looking at the white lace dress in Louis's hand, Yael grimaced. "I think what I'm wearing is fine." Jordan closed in on the gap between them, his eyes cold. "I don't mind changing it for you personally." Last night, Yael had experienced his skills firsthand. This man was not to be trifled with when he wasn't feeling ill. She raised her hand in surrender. "All right, I'll do it myself. You have 20 minutes. Half an hour later, now dressed in a black tailored coat, Jordan sat elegantly in a Rolls-Royce Phantom. His thin lips tightly pressed, the Lord of Hell had clearly run out of patience. Louis hesitated. Sir, would you like me to go hurry, madam? Here she comes. The voice was accompanied by a young lady in a white lace dress that reached her ankles. Her dark curls were loosely pulled back with a white lace ribbon that fluttered in the breeze. Emerging from the colossal stone villa, she resembled a medieval maiden. However, when his gaze fell on her face with that dramatic and terrifying makeup, especially the red scar under her left eye, his eyes turned cold. Are you deliberately trying to embarrass me? A strong sense of oppression radiated from Jordan, a clear sign of his impending anger. Yet all merely raised a brow as she lifted her skirt to board the car. You don't understand. This is called zombie bride makeup. Isn't it befitting of the occasion? She had put in quite the effort to achieve this look. Looking at her, Jordan's eyes grew colder. Perhaps it was the faint fragrance lingering from her movements, reminding him strongly of the girl from that night. Jordan forcefully suppressed the desire to throw Ya out of the car. The unchanneled anger with no proper outlet for venting found its way onto Xander. Are you waiting for me to drive? Xander quickly averted his gaze, stepped on the accelerator, and took off. The Rolls-Royce Phantom immediately cruised down the road. Yal smirked smugly, then found a comfortable position to lean back in her seat. Her lazy gaze drifted past the window. Reflected in the window was the tall and strapping figure of the man. Even his silhouette exuded an air of nobility and intimidation. Rumor had it that Jordan York was ruthless and unpredictable, feared by all in Haneda. He was also the most unloved and unacknowledged illegitimate son of the York family. Yet, his noble, godly demeanor was unmatched by anyone. Not even in her previous life had she seen the likes of him. He was far more mysterious than she had imagined. If it weren't for his illness, no one in the entire state would be his match. Nevertheless, he was fortunate to have met her. She was here to crash his date with his maker. Yuna and Willa's painstaking efforts to arrange this union might just be their greatest mistake. Chapter 10. I did not push Willa Brooks. Half an hour later. The Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped at the entrance of York Castle. Yal glanced out the window. The imposing York Castle, with its meticulously crafted gardens and towering trees, stood majestically at the highest elevation in the city. The castle was heavily guarded, and amidst the breathtaking greenery, one could glimpse the magnificent structure with a strong Nordic flair. Even with just a peek from a distance, the grandeur of the York family was far beyond the reach of the Brooks family. The castle door opened. Surrounded by a group of servants and bodyguards, a tall man with striking features stepped out. The man oozed a strong charisma, his bespoke suit impeccable without a crease. In the juxtaposing light and shadows, his handsome face bristled with arrogance and superiority. This was Joshua York, the legendary heir of the York family. Her former fiancé? Indeed, he seemed quite remarkable. But still a far cry from the one beside her. Joshua sauntered over with his hands in his pockets, emanating an air of disdain and impatience. Without looking into the car, he stood by the window and jeered aloud. Bro, you're here early. Is it because your failing body wasn't able to perform the conjugal duties last night? With these words, Yal completely lost all initial favorable impression of him. No man could tolerate such words. Unexpectedly, the irascible Jordan York, renowned for his intolerance to provocations, remained calmly seated, completely unperturbed. What the hell? Where's your ruthless authority befitting of Hades? He's insulting your manhood. Ignored, Joshua chuckled lightly with schadenfreude. Then again, you married a fool instead of my Willa. What would a fool know about conjugal acts? That retard dared hurt his Willa. Today, he would ensure she bowed and begged for mercy. Yael could no longer bear listening. She violently pushed open the car door. Who are you calling a fool? Joshua narrowly escaped getting slammed by the car door. Taking several steps back, his face darkened. Are you tired of living? But upon seeing Yael, his words got stuck in his throat. He was actually intimidated by a woman's gaze. She was wearing the dress the old patriarch gifted to Jordan for his new bride. Was she Yael Brooks? Joshua asked tentatively, Are you Yael Brooks? He clearly remembered that although Yael was foolish, she had a beautiful and delicate face. This woman with bizarre makeup was a world apart. Yael's eyes were cold as ice, the real deal. It really was her. The light in Joshua's eyes turned cold. Perfect, just so happens I'm looking for you, you retard. You dare insult and push Willa down the stairs. Now you come to the Yorks to make trouble? Go now to the hospital and apologize to Willa on your knees. Maybe then I'll consider sparing you. Yael nonchalantly raised a brow. She shamelessly stole my fiancé and expects me to apologize? Joshua's face darkened further. Willa and I are perfect together. I've no interest in a retard like you. Stop deluding yourself. You and my sickly brother make a better pair. A fool and a patient, a perfect fit. At least you possess some self-awareness. Scumbags and strumpets, indeed, make a perfect match. Joshua was furious, unable to believe a fool would dare speak to him this way. You have 3 seconds to apologize to me, else I'll make you crawl through the door. In her previous life, Yael was a senior medical officer with the Marines, unparalleled in both combat skills and medical knowledge. No one ever dared provoke her like this. Go ahead, try it. Just then, the castle door opened again. This time, a row of elegantly dressed noblewomen stepped out. Yael's eye was caught by the regal lady heading the party. She was a statuesque beauty wearing a silver-white tassel dress and draped in a silk shawl studded with rhinestones. Her dark hair was styled in an elegant updo, giving off an aristocratic and sophisticated charm. She walked forward, shielding the furious Joshua behind her. Her sharp eyes scanned Yael's face, finally landing on the dress she wore, her expression full of contempt. As expected, she's a fool wearing such ugly makeup. What a waste of an invaluable dress. She couldn't compare to even a strand of Willa's hair. The noblewoman looked at the girl before her with condescension. Your first day in the Yorks household and you're being disrespectful even before stepping through the door. Is this how the Brooks family raised you? Such slander. Yael chuckled. Indeed, the Brooks family's upbringing is lacking. How else would they raise a strumpet who makes a perfect match with your precious son? There was no need to guess that this noblewoman was Joshua's mother, Sadie Lynch. This group of women was, no doubt, deliberately invited by Sadie to give her a hard time. Sadie hadn't expected the rumored fool to be so acerbic. You dare insult Willa. If it wasn't for her sake, do you think you can enter the York family? Exactly. Even though Mr. Jordan's health is poor, he's still the son of the York family. You, a fool, are unworthy of him. A lady standing behind Sadie chimed in. I can't believe you're so ungrateful and even pushed Miss Willa down the stairs. You're truly wicked. I think this girl isn't only a fool, but also a lunatic. Right, she has utterly disgraced the Brooks family. I've heard that when she left Hunia years ago, she caused quite a scandal. After all these years, she still hasn't changed. Listening to the taunts of the noblewomen, Ya's eyes glazed over like a frozen lake. I'll say it only once. I did not push Willa Brooks. A bunch of gullible idiots. Sadie's face turned ashen. How could she maintain her standing amongst the noblewomen present if she didn't teach this insolent wench a lesson today? You still dare argue? Seems like you won't know your place without a lesson. Mom, no need to say more. Just tie up this fool and send her to the hospital. Joshua interrupted. With Joshua's command, the surrounding bodyguards began to close in on Yael.